the Celebrating Singles podcast.
Whoa.
We're here. I'm so excited, you guys, to introduce you to a new group of friends and some people who I just am really excited to celebrate today. Honestly, like these are some dear friends and pretty pumped. So we're going to do some introductions. My name is Christy. I happen to live in Kona, Hawaii. I'm 36 years old, and I also happen to be single. So Gracie, I know. Gracie, do you want to go next?
I'm Gracie, and I live in San Francisco, currently in Seoul, Korea, and I am 27 years old and also happily single. Passing it off to Harrison over there on the right.
Ooh. What's up? I'm Harrison from Waco, Texas, 27 and also single.
And I'm Chantel. I am 35 and also happen to be single.
All right, perfect. So, you guys, I'm really excited for this week's topic. We are going to talk about friendship and navigating friendship between guys and gals. So, one of the things that we've kind of just been talking about amongst our friends in different ways as we've been thinking about this project that we're calling Celebrating Singles is really, I would say, a huge void of friendship, and specifically a void of friendship between men and women or the opposite sex. And so we're going to just like kick this off, and I'm really pumped and excited to see where we go. I'm very curious where we end up, especially with this crew. But I guess I want to first start out. It begs the question, like a lot of people say, like, wow, I don't have a lot of friendships with the opposite sex, even as a single. And so I'm just curious, actually, what are your guys' opinions? Can you just be friends with the opposite sex? That's the question. What do we think? Is it possible?
Whoa.
Is this possible?
Wow.
I would say yes.
What if you're slightly attracted to them? That's a good question. Can you still be friends with them?
Whoa.
Absolutely. I think so.
I would say yes, totally.
I mean, we have some really attractive friends. I don't think I'd have very many friends left if I wasn't attracted. I think I have some pretty attractive friends.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Wait, Gracie, you do think you can be friends? Did you answer?
I think if you are really attracted to someone, not just objectively, it might be more difficult for you to be in a close relationship with them.
Yeah.
Which might just make it hard on yourself, you know.
Yeah.
That's a good word.
But I would love to hear your thoughts, Chantel and Harrison.
I think it's definitely possible to still be friends. I think it's what matters more is like where you allow your own thoughts to go. And so if you can say, this person's my friend no matter what at the end of the day, and I am going to choose friendship with them above anything else, then I think friendship is a great starting point. Like every marriage, every relationship that I see around me, the foundation and basis of that is friendship. So I'd rather be friends with lots of people, knowing that maybe one day the right person will come along and that friendship will be a bond that will remain and become a marriage. But I think it's totally possible to have guy-girl friendships that are just friendships. And there's a beauty to being able to see from their perspective and live life together. And
I think too, like something to think about is typically why either people don't think it's possible or just if they don't think it's possible a lot of times is because there's just pain between different genders a lot of times. And like that pain we've experienced, whether it's from a breakup, whether it's from this, whatever it is, sometimes we put those painful emotions onto the situation, and it makes us either want to like just go all the way in or just shrink all the way back kind of thing. And so you feel like you're not allowed almost like to have that friendship because a lot of times you don't feel like you can control your pain, like and what it might cause. And so I think that kind of self-awareness a lot of times of like just being like, oh, I actually recognize there's something that happened before that could be trying to like put itself on this next thing or the next person that might actually be a really good friendship and really beneficial friendship for me and give me really helpful perspective in my own life.
Yeah.
Dang, Harrison, you're just taking it straight in. Let's go.
Yeah, just go there, you know?
Come
Let's go
on, let's
there.
talk
The
about it.
one guy,
But
the one
really,
guy
let's
taking us
talk
in.
about it. Because but what's real about that is there's fear. Like we all have this fear in our hearts that if I let someone in that is even in a friendship level, it's like if I let them in too deep, that maybe they're going to reach a part of me that I don't want them to see. And so we put up these walls and we say to ourselves, like, it's better for me to self-protect. It's better for me to not show my true self. And so I keep people at a distance. And anytime we're distancing because of fear, we're actually not allowing people to be our friends, maybe to the depth that they would even want to be our friends. And so, yeah, I'm like, it's a real thing.
Yeah, so
So
good.
real, so real. Judging from the person, it took me 35 years to realize I'm an avoidant attachment style. Like, who knew? I did not know. Whoops. Really good. Cool thing. It only took me that long to figure out I was totally avoiding deep relationships. It was so easy for me, especially like in places like San Francisco and Austin, the places I lived, like it was way easier to have surface level friendships and go boom, boom, boom. Like I was so busy all the time and had such a wide friend group. I'm a 7 on the Enneagram. I don't know if anyone else can relate, but the enthusiast. Yes. So, but what I had no idea was actually like this underlying, definitely like avoiding deeper relationships, both with guys and gals alike, but definitely, I would say more self-protection modes, with dudes for sure. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
real.
Yeah. I want to go a little deeper with what Chantel said too. I think it's also like we have a tendency to begin like imagining or thinking what the opposite gender's thinking as we're relating. So a lot of times, like they haven't actually told me that, or I haven't actually told them. But what makes us scared a lot of times is I have all these things I think I know they're thinking, but
Ooh,
I don't actually know they're thinking, and I'm too
because we haven't
afraid.
had the conversation.
Yeah, I'm too afraid to ask them if they're actually thinking that.
Yeah.
You know, because I don't want to either sacrifice the friendship or like I don't want to. I think that will make it awkward forever past that point. So, like we don't even realize sometimes when we get almost like irrationally afraid in our thinking and we're not even aware of it. It's like everything is going to explode, but I think sometimes it's like that pain inside us that makes our fear literally go irrational. We don't even realize it. Because there can be like light fear we're dealing with, and you can recognize, oh, like I'm just being a little afraid. But then we can create so many different fantasies and imaginations, like when we let our fear and our pain like mix together about the opposite gender.
Such a good point.
Yeah.
So how would
Dang,
we
so
not
real.
do that? Like, what would
Say
be
that
a
again?
way to? How would we not do that? How would we address it in like in a friendship circumstance where we're not running
Yeah.
and avoiding, and also letting those thoughts take over and assuming like, oh my God, this guy really likes me, or like he really doesn't like me, but I'm just assuming. So how would we handle that situation?
Yeah. Well, one, I think what's hard for us is like just like any relationship, whether romantic or it's just a friendship, you have to actually put your heart out there.
Yeah.
There's no relationship, whether it's friendship or like romantic, that you don't actually have your heart out there. And
Right.
so if I just totally avoid, then you can do this fake friendship thing if you want,
Yeah.
but that's not actually going to be authentic. And
Yeah.
so, and I think that's another
Dang,
thing.
that's
I don't know if
so
we,
interesting.
I don't know if, I don't know if we think it's possible at times, like that we can have like emotional health, like actual emotional connection between a male and a female without it being romantic. And so I think we've kind of put that almost in the impossible range a lot of times. And but I think for like the challenge, I guess I'd say is like, but what if that actually is possible? And so, and I think, like I said, part of the way is like I got to put my heart out there, and then I
Yeah.
have to be like aware of my own
So
thoughts. I can't let the thoughts keep looping and looping and looping about what they could be thinking. And like if I think there is
Hmm.
like something, then I should just ask them if there is and not be like
Mhm.
terrified it's going to ruin the whole friendship.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
Yeah,
that's my initial thoughts,
that's
I
good.
guess.
that
Yeah.
is so good. That's so interesting.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
such a good.
Thanks.
I think it's super fascinating to ask I love asking my guy friends how they think because it is so different from how my brain works.
Right.
So like wildly different. I'm like,
Yeah.
How did that come out of your brain? Like, I just don't even understand right now. Um, okay, so like Harrison, I need you to talk on something really fast. Explain the nothing box because
Oh,
makes
the
no sense
nothing
to me,
box.
and I do not understand this. But all of our guy friends apparently have this nothing box. I just think this is so enlightening. So, would you enlighten us, Harrison?
Yes, yes. I knew this was about to come up. Um, so I've only talked to one guy that's told me he doesn't have this. Yeah, this can be really helpful for a girl to understand. Is that there's this thing that a guy has. He has an ability to literally be not thinking about anything. And so what like something I like to do if I'm just chilling,
What would
like
life be
I
like?
remember like yeah, isn't that crazy?
No idea.
And so like there's these times like I really like to try like if I'm traveling I like to be on trains. And one of my favorite things to do on a train is literally to just stare out the window. And I'm not thinking about anything. I'm just staring. And it's like really relaxing for my mind to not be thinking about anything. You know, I was on this train this one time, and I was with this lady, and me and my bro were with her, and she like we were just trying to stare out the window. Like that's what we were there to do. We were like, oh, we're on a train. I want to stare out this window for an hour, and she just kept talking, and she like wasn't getting the memo that we were trying to stare out the window. And so there's an ability that guys have to actually think about nothing that I think a lot of times women can interpret as like, oh my gosh, what is he thinking? Does he hate me because he's not saying anything? All these different things. And it's like, no, 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 like I'm actually thinking about nothing. So that's kind
I
of the
think
nothing
I've asked
box.
you at times, like, Harrison, what are you thinking? He's like, nothing, literally nothing. And I'm like, okay, good. Harrison's in his nothing box.
Yes.
What the heck, though? I do not understand. This is not how my mind works. It's just not very different.
Mm-mm.
I can genuinely say I don't think I've
We
ever
don't
experienced a
relate.
nothing
We
box.
don't relate.
Yeah, it's a great
Yeah.
place to
Yeah, we
go.
do not
But I
relate.
think, like, speaking about friendships and the idea that guys have this nothing box and girls are kind of the exact opposite. We have this like hyperactive mindset where all the time we're reading into things.
Always.
Every single thing that we're doing or seeing or watching, it's like we're trying to understand it, trying to interpret, trying to like take it in and be like, what does this mean? And yet so often it doesn't mean what we think it does. And so we can take this nothing box example, and it's like if a guy, you're hanging out with a guy and he's in his nothing box, but you're sitting there thinking like, oh, he hates me, he's so mad, or there's something wrong because he's not talking. It's like, no, you just need to have a conversation. You just need to ask the question of like, hey, where are you at? What's going on? And sometimes they don't want to be asked that question.
Yeah, I know.
And then other times, as you know, they'll be really honest if they are self-aware and understand where their mind is. And other times they're just like, oh, I don't know, I was just thinking. And really it was nothing. But I feel like for girls to realize that our brains just work in a different way. And that's okay. But we can't go down a rabbit trail of thoughts without being able to be willing to have the conversation, because honestly it's like we shouldn't just make assumptions, which I think is what we're really good at.
So real. So real.
Good.
I mean, I have so many friends where it's like they just met a guy. They didn't even go on a date yet. They just like met a guy and are already like planning their wedding, basically. Like all these things. I'm like, whoa. Did you like have a conversation with him? Like, I don't even know if you had a conversation with him. Like, hold up here. Like, what's going on? So yeah, I think, and then as a result, a lot of pain, a lot of like really, probably I would say guys are like, what the heck? What is happening? Why is this girl
Yeah.
like taking 1,000 steps forward? not helpful. So yeah, so clearly we're speaking from some interesting, probably mistakes, experiences, that sort of thing. I'm curious to ask you guys, I guess, do you want to talk towards some lessons that you've learned in navigating friendships with the opposite sex? Maybe if anyone wants to get real vulnerable and share some mistakes, or I guess I'll start with a vulnerability challenge. I would say for years, if I was like physically attracted to someone, I would basically like, that was my only interest in them. And so it would like, I would start the conversation, whether it be at work or in just a social setting or whatever. And I would start, either somehow the conversation would start, and I would constantly be evaluating in my head, like, am I interested in a romantic relationship with this person? And that was literally the lens of which I approached anyone with the opposite sex that didn't have a ring on their finger. And it was wild when I started realizing how unhealthy that was. It was like, oh my gosh, I can't actually even get to know someone in a normal way because I'm constantly evaluating them. And then, but the worst part was if I were to identify something that I really didn't like, that I was like, oh, he's talking about like all these people he slept with or whatever. And then I'm like, okay, bye, see you later. I wouldn't even engage in a friendship. Like, I'm like, if they're not my husband, I want nothing to do with them. You ask me to like go to coffee, like whatever. I'm like, nope. You want to go out to dinner? Nope. Like, literally cut off so many guys because I was like, no, I know I'm not interested in marrying them. But then I like didn't have any guy friendships, and that was a huge mistake. And it wasn't until like years later when I finally had like 2 guy friends that really kind of came into my life in this interesting way. And I was like, wow, I actually like need guy friends. Like, for my like personal development, my professional development, all of it. Like, I actually need personal relationships, not just coworkers, but I need personal relationships in my life that are healthy, that are with the opposite sex. But for years, that was like the lens that I operated under whenever I would meet someone new, and it was really unhealthy.
So I would say this was like 4 or 5 years ago. I had a guy friend that he would text all the time, call all the time. Like, I just was like constantly in communication with him. And he just made a lot of things about us doing things together. And so I personally like kind of latched on to this idea of like, oh my gosh, like maybe there's something here. Like maybe he likes me. Like, he enjoys spending time with me. So maybe there's like something in this. And I remember sitting down and having a conversation with him and just having to explain to him like, hey, the amount of communication and like time commitment that we're spending with one another is actually something that's indicating that our relationship's way further along than what it is. And like, where are we at on that? And I just found that he was not thinking the same thing I was thinking. Because in my mind, I was like, hey, you're communicating these things. You're committing this amount of time to me. I feel like there's like a lot of, like, there's a deep level of friendship, and for me, it was like, I was interested, and I'm like, I'm totally here for this if this is where we're headed. But that was not where he was at all. And so it just kind of took this moment of then like really retracting and not communicating and hanging out as much, which was definitely healthy. I think I needed that on my end. But the level of things where it was like, wow, that escalated so quickly, and it really didn't have to, because I think a conversation probably could have happened way sooner.
Yeah, I honestly, that was what I was going to talk about. I was like, when you start frequently communicating, which is like now with like texting and social media and so many things, right? It's like so easy to fall into that trap and cross a bunch of boundaries really, really fast. And it can be totally normal, innocent at first. And now all of a sudden, like, there's like either codependency happening or there's like emotional needs being met, even subconsciously, that like maybe one or neither of the people really understand what they're doing, and which ultimately, like, it to be honest, I see it always ending in someone getting hurt, because one person develops feelings for the other, and it almost always ends up in like either the friendship totally ending or someone seriously getting hurt, which really sucks. And so I would say, like, definitely establish, like, I actually was given this advice, which I thought was really helpful I think there was a psychologist or something. I was like, that was really smart. But they were saying that if you have to change that friendship once you get married, then you've probably crossed some emotional boundaries that you shouldn't be crossing. And I thought that was so helpful to think about, like, oh, if I were married, if this friendship would totally have to change, then like, shoot, I'm probably not operating in a safe space. And so I just thought that advice was super helpful. So I'll give that away.
That's good. I think also like I just think something I've learned too is like typically like with the opposite gender, my first way of thinking isn't to be doing things one on one all the time, even if I am developing a friendship with the opposite gender. Now, like if things end up that way, like that's fine. You know, like it's not like your intention was like, oh, I really want to just hang out one on one for hours with this person, you know. But it's like if you can like reach out like to multiple different people together, and that's going to be super helpful to not go down like an unhealthy road. But it's like if you reach out to multiple people and it just happens to be like, oh, only y'all two can go do whatever it is, as long as it's not something like, oh, let's just like hang out in my bedroom, you know, or like
yeah, not
go
a great
watch
idea.
yeah, like go watch a movie, you know, like it's like there's certain things like that would just be like kind of silly if you're trying to, you know, just be helpful with your heart. But I think that's a helpful thing is like I probably shouldn't assume and think, oh, like I'm just gonna do one on one like hangouts with them all the time. But do your best to like just put an effort out there to do things in a group. And if it doesn't end up that way, then that was never your intention in the beginning. So yeah.
I just agree with that and say that group settings are amazing because then it's like you find the people that you naturally gravitate towards too. But group settings allows everyone to be a part of the process of you just being friends, and it's a beautiful thing to be friends with one another. So I would say the more numbers there are, the better, because then it's like you can have a really robust friend group. As I have searched for friends, I've found people who have things in common with me, and we all like revolve around these different ideas and values that then as we hang out, it's like, wow, this is really fun. This is really life-giving. This is, you know, something that we can all come and be a part of. And it kind of levels the playing field, and it takes away this feeling of like, oh, I have to have this one, like if you only have one friend of the opposite sex and you hang out with them all the time, it's like that might not be the best type of friendship to have, because you probably need more people in your life who are also going to challenge you and sharpen you and take you to deeper levels. So
yeah, that's good. Yeah, for group, I definitely also agree. Group settings, super awesome. For me, I love to be able to like find volunteer opportunities. And I love to be able to see, like, honestly, I have like a checklist in my mind. If a guy takes out the trash, I am like, okay, that's hot.
Done.
Like, let's go. I am like ready to go. I'm ready to get to know that person. If I see him like actually doing the work, literally, or some guys are just literally sitting on the edge while everyone else is like, I don't know, putting something together for this like, you know, nonprofit organization. And I'm like, yeah, not it. Like, sorry, don't have time for you right now. But so I would say like another opportunity to get into group settings would be volunteer projects or volunteer opportunities. Like I would organize them for my work. And it was amazing the type of people that I got to meet and got to interact with. And you actually got to see them do everyday life. Like that's like part of my qualm with dating is you like, most people like go out to eat to get to know someone, but like that's not most of real life. Like I actually want to know, like, does he voluntarily take out the trash, or is he like helpful, or you know, what is he like making weird jokes all the time that like are really vulgar? It's like that's actually not who I want to hang around with. Like it's so helpful to get out of like that fake. I just feel like dinner dating, I don't know, I'm just not a fan. If it worked for you, great, awesome. I just am not a fan of that. I'm just way much rather like, let's go on an adventure. Let's go on a hike. Let's like work out, or let's like go do something. So, and I've found that volunteering is like a great way to get to know people and get to do it in a group setting. So that's another, I would say.
So I
idea.
want to ask a question. We're talking a lot about standards, and I would say like a lot of people probably don't have the standard of like you shouldn't hang out with a guy one on one for a long period of time, or it's like bad. It's bad to have like a guy best friend, for example. So why? What would we tell people? Like, why should we avoid that? Why is that not what we want to do?
Yeah, I mean, I would say for me personally, one of the things that I found is that when I have had a guy best friend, my heart more naturally is inclined to go to a deeper place emotionally, intimately, to where that person starts becoming this person an object of affection. And whether there is like actual mutual attraction or not, I'm letting that person into a deeper place of my life than maybe is healthy. And so it's something to evaluate, something to just check and say, like, okay, where are we on this spectrum of friendship? You know, are we hanging out every day, 24/7? Then that might be a good thing to just like evaluate your heart. Like, do you like this person? I know I have actually been a friend to many friends who I have challenged people of like, hey, I see you're hanging out with this person a lot. Like, is there actually something there for you? And to me, I'm like, there's nothing wrong with there being mutual attraction, but I think it's not calling it what it is really hard because someone, like Christy was saying, is going to get hurt in the end. And so for me, it's that place of I want to make sure that my relationship uh, is going to honor my future marriage. And if this person is my best friend and I'm spending all this time with them, but then I end up marrying someone else, like what happens then? And how do I live knowing that I gave this one person so much of me and access to so much of me? And then all of a sudden it's like you're trying to let someone else in, and that I think that's going to be a really difficult transition and shift in your heart. So I'm like, Christy said a lot of it earlier to me of like what resonates to me, and so I just agree with that.
Yeah, that's good. And it kind of goes to, it's almost like how much do you value yourself? Like what are you giving access people to? Determines like how do you value yourself? Like the things of the deep parts of you, they're not for everybody. You know, they're not for I mean, especially I feel like in dating relationships, like you don't have to give yourself away to everyone, and you shouldn't actually. So Harrison, you look like you have a thought there. What are you pranking on?
I don't think I have like a ton of thoughts, but I have a little bit. I mean, I just hear over and over and over again, like when there's consistent like one-on-one time, I think just like those imaginations, like I was talking about earlier, they keep coming, they keep coming, they keep coming, and you can do like a work of like halting those in your mind and things like that. But I think that those like imaginations specifically, like if you're just continue to press, just intentionally do one-on-one over and over again, those imaginations become emotions. And those emotions, like, even if you don't, like, even if they're not even like what's actually happening, that's just crazy. Like, is like what you're thinking, like, becomes what's the actual reality of the situation. Like, because those thoughts then become emotions. And then you're like thinking about this relationship, one, a lot of times in a way you're not even aware of anymore, and two, that they're not even aware of anymore. And that's typically where the the hurt and pain is. And so I think that's why like it's so good to be intentional to strive for groups. But if you end up in one-on-one situations, not to freak out every time and be like, oh my gosh, because then it's like if you're freaking out, getting all afraid in those, then it's like, okay, now you're literally just ramping up those imaginations, you know? And like and that fear is not going to help in those situations. You can I think you can have like a trust a lot of times of like, hey, I made an effort to make this a group thing. This isn't like a me and this person thing. Like, this is just how it ended up. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's so good. Oh my gosh, you guys, we could go on and on and on. This has been so fun. Okay, we've learned things like don't self-protect based on past pain, right? But guys and gals can be friends. I think we all came to this conclusion. We think it's a good thing overall, but with boundaries. Maybe it could be a summary, right? Like not a lot of one-on-one, not a ton of frequent communication, obviously. And yeah, and guys have a nothing box. We have to include that in the summary. That's a big
It's true.
Win from today.
That's for all the men out there just trying to help y'all out.
Oh my goodness. Okay, thank you guys so much for this time. We're so grateful for just getting to pick your brains and have just some honest and raw conversations about this. We're gonna have to invite you guys back for a part 2. So be on the lookout. We're excited. But yeah, thank you guys so much. So for everyone listening, you can find more resources on celebratingsingles.com or Celebrating Singles on Instagram. So we're really grateful and really excited to see where this journey is going to take us. This project is very grassroots. So we know that we can't build it wherever this needs to go. We're going to need some help. And so the last thing I'll say is if you're really passionate about the subject, if you're really excited to see singles being celebrated, singles walking in emotional health, singles going out and changing the world and not waiting until we get married, or really changing the culture's narrative on being single. If you are excited about that mission, we want to talk to you. We want to hear from you. So reach out to us. All the info is on celebratingsingles.com. And yeah, we hope to see you on the next episode. Thanks, guys.